Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
So we've talked over the course of the week here so far about sort of the problem with meddling in other people's affairs in broad moving sort of pieces, right? We don't want to essentially go in and take away somebody's, potential suffering if that's the sort of angle for their growth and development. But the trend is there, and we all have it kind of built in. It's culturally one of the things that we kind of embrace as a way of being in the world, which is to help and go and do these good things. And if you listen to this and you hear me telling you that helping is a bad idea, you're going to kind of have a conflict, right? So let's talk about what it really means when we talk about things like helping. If going in and essentially stealing the dessert, which is that lesson, that meta understanding, the cognitive sort of growth. If you go in and steal everyone's dessert right before they're about to bite it, you get to eat the dessert, which feels good, but the guy doesn't grow, and that's kind of a problem. The other sort of things that we're recommending, and we've talked about over the course of several different podcast episodes over the years, have been things like the idea of presence and sitting with someone who's in the middle of the struggle. And those are great solutions, great sort of ways to maybe sort of tamp down your own instinct to go in and, be the hero, right? Because when we're talking about helping, what really is a more meaningful angle to consider here is breaking out the level. The level reminds us that we're all traveling that level of time towards whose undiscovered country no traveler ever returns. So when we look at the level as a thing, right, it really does make sense then to look at the behaviors we consider doing in any given moment, the interventions we're considering on that longer timeline, on that timeline of, maybe it feels good to solve the problem now, but on a long timeline, does it create more problems? But on a longer timeline, is denying the lesson now more or less likely to hurt long term? And so we look through these kinds of lenses in Freemasonry across the board, and we take things like helping as a concept, and we really begin to analyze who are we helping, why, what's the design intent, what's the sort of causality, what's the consequence, the downstream effect of what we do. Most people don't necessarily have this sort of process going on in their head at all times. And it takes a long time to curate and develop that sort of in the moment reflection on your own behavior. Lots of people, lots of lesser informed people that haven't really had the chance or don't know any better, just kind of show up and get what they get. But when we start thinking about these behaviors longer term, we begin to be able to cultivate better and more skillful capacities and responses. When you look at this, it's also important to understand the underlying lever behind a lot of what we do as planful, conscientious, caring people. And we talk about things like reducing suffering. We talk about things like helping people out. All of those are kind of fanciful labels for staying in control. They are fanciful labels for asserting some sense of feeling of control in life. And I will suggest to you that feeling that you may get out of doing this help, out of performing these acts, is strictly speaking a feeling. It is not meaningful control, because, like any sort of circumstance or situation in life, you can mitigate risk. You cannot prevent it entirely, right? There's always the unknown. There's always the consequence that comes in that could hurt. So then sort of mathematically break out and you say, hey, listen, if that's the case, then why shouldn't I just help all the time? Well, again, this points back to the lessons from earlier this week. Helping is good if it's genuinely helping and not self-gratifying or in the sort of short-term impulse control kind of way, helping you short-term or even helping them short-term, but in the long term, really damaging their learning potential or their growth and development. So when we start putting all these things in context, we understand that even little things like helping out, when analyzed, start to provide more insight and more details about the way we interact with each other so that we can be more effective in helping. So we're not just band-aiding solutions or putting out candy-coated sort of aphorisms so we feel good, but instead really meaningfully understanding the systems that are at play, the people and their behavior that you're trying to assist so that you can get to the outcomes you're really shooting for. All of which lead to an increased sense of control, even if that doesn't practically turn into control itself.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amasonswork.com and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.